Brunei is richer than Malaysia. It is a fact. Brunei, a tiny country you could probably drive across in an afternoon, is somehow richer than its massive neighbor Malaysia. How is that even possible? Malaysia's got the skyscrapers, the bustling cities, and a way bigger population, but Brunei is rolling in wealth while Malaysia is still trying to catch up. What's Brunei's secret? And why does Malaysia, with all its resources and potential, feel like it's stuck in second place? Let's break it down and uncover the surprising truth behind this economic mystery. Brunei and Malaysia, two neighboring countries in Southeast Asia, yet their economic realities couldn't be more different. Brunei, with a population of just around 440,000, is one of the wealthiest nations in the world on a per capita basis. In 2024, its GDP per capita stood at an impressive $65,000, thanks largely to its oil wealth. Compare that to Malaysia, a much larger country with over 33 million people, and a GDP per capita of roughly $13,000. A striking difference that raises the question, why? Both nations share a history of being part of the British Empire, gaining independence in the mid-20th century. They have access to rich natural resources, including oil and gas. But while Brunei built its economy almost entirely on its petroleum reserves, Malaysia diversified into manufacturing, agriculture, and services. At first glance, diversification might seem like a strength for Malaysia, but the reality is far more complicated. Brunei's small size plays a significant role in its economic success. Managing a country with less than 500,000 people is vastly different from handling a nation with tens of millions. It's easier to distribute wealth and implement policies effectively when the population is small. For Malaysia, sheer size adds layers of complexity and strain. Another key difference is the structure of their economies. Brunei relies heavily on oil and gas, which account for over 90% of its government revenue. Malaysia also benefits from oil exports, but it has to share the profits across a much larger population, and its economic strategy involves a mix of industries, from electronics to tourism. While diversification is crucial for long-term stability, it doesn't generate the concentrated wealth that Brunei enjoys. The differences don't stop there. Brunei's political system, with its absolute monarchy under Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah, allows for swift decision-making and minimal bureaucracy. Malaysia's parliamentary democracy, while more inclusive, has faced challenges with political instability and frequent leadership changes. These contrasting approaches have shaped how each nation uses its resources and manages its economy. But numbers and systems only tell part of the story. To truly understand why Brunei is richer than Malaysia, we need to dig deeper into their histories, policies, and unique circumstances. From welfare programs to international trade, the factors that separate these two nations are as fascinating as they are impactful. Brunei being small is a blessing. Brunei's wealth begins and ends with its natural resources. The tiny nation sits on vast reserves of oil and natural gas, which account for more than 90% of its government revenue and nearly all its exports. With such concentrated wealth and a population of less than 500,000, Brunei has managed to maintain one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world. Its energy exports are primarily sold to regional powerhouses like Japan, China, and South Korea, ensuring a steady flow of income. Malaysia, on the other hand, also benefits from oil and gas, but its larger population dilutes the economic impact of these resources. While Malaysia's petroleum industry contributes significantly to its GDP, it represents a smaller slice of a much more diverse economic pie. Malaysia's economy includes sectors like electronics manufacturing, palm oil production, and tourism, all vital but less lucrative per capita than Brunei's oil-based economy. Brunei's small population gives it a unique advantage in managing its wealth. The country collects immense revenues from oil and gas and spends them on generous social welfare programs. Citizens enjoy free education, healthcare, and even subsidized housing. In contrast, Malaysia's larger population makes such extensive welfare systems financially unsustainable. Instead, Malaysia focuses on infrastructure projects, regional trade agreements, and industrial diversification to support its broader population. Another stark contrast lies in their dependence on resource exports. Brunei remains highly reliant on oil and gas, making its economy vulnerable to fluctuations in global energy prices. For example, during the oil price crashes in 2015 and 2020, Brunei's GDP growth slowed dramatically. Malaysia, while also affected by global oil prices, has the cushion of a diversified economy. which includes one of the world's largest electronics manufacturing sectors. However, diversification comes with challenges. Malaysia must balance its economic priorities across various sectors, often at the expense of maximizing profitability in any one area. Brunei's singular focus on oil allows for more concentrated wealth, but risks leaving the country unprepared for a future without fossil fuels. The stark differences in resource management and economic structures highlight why Brunei is richer per capita than Malaysia. While Brunei benefits from its small size and singular focus, Malaysia grapples with the complexities of managing a diverse and growing economy. But as global energy markets shift and new economic opportunities arise, these strategies will continue to evolve, shaping the future fortunes of both nations. Brunei versus Malaysia, rich versus poor. Brunei and Malaysia's contrasting systems of governance have played a critical role in shaping their economic outcomes. Brunei operates as an absolute monarchy under Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah, who has ruled since 1967. This centralized power structure enables swift decision-making, minimal political conflict, and a streamlined approach to economic management. For instance, the Sultan can allocate national resources, design welfare programs, and implement policies without the delays often caused by bureaucratic processes or political opposition. In Malaysia, the story is very different. As a parliamentary democracy, Malaysia frequently experiences shifts in political leadership, coalition changes, and policy inconsistencies. Over the past decade, Malaysia has seen multiple changes in its prime ministership, leading to interruptions in economic reforms and development projects. While the democratic system allows for broader representation, it also introduces inefficiencies and delays that can hinder long-term economic planning. Political stability has given Brunei an edge in maintaining its wealth. The Sultan's government has been able to build reserves from oil revenues, ensuring the country's financial stability even during global downturns. In contrast, Malaysia's political turmoil often impacts investor confidence and economic performance. For instance, during periods of political instability, Malaysia has seen significant capital flight and slower economic growth. Corruption also plays a role in these differences. Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index consistently ranks Brunei higher than Malaysia. While no system is entirely immune to corruption, Brunei's tight-knit governance minimizes the risk of large-scale embezzlement. Malaysia, on the other hand, has faced several high-profile corruption scandals, such as the 1MDB financial scandal, which shook both domestic and international confidence in its governance. The impact of these governance styles is evident in their economic policies. Brunei's centralized decision-making allows for efficient allocation of resources, such as maintaining its extensive welfare programs. Malaysia's fragmented politics, however, can lead to policy gridlocks and inefficient use of resources, hindering its ability to compete with Brunei's focused strategies. Brunei's absolute monarchy ensures a sense of continuity and stability that attracts investments and allows for long-term planning. In Malaysia, while democracy provides a voice to its diverse population, the frequent political turnover disrupts its economic momentum. These differences highlight why Brunei's governance model, though less inclusive, has contributed to its wealth and stability, while Malaysia's more democratic approach faces the challenges of managing a much larger and more complex nation. Brunei happiness versus Malaysia sadness. Brunei's immense wealth translates directly into generous social welfare programs that are the envy of the region. Its citizens benefit from free healthcare, free education, and heavily subsidized housing, all funded by the government's lucrative oil and gas revenues. The Sultan's administration prioritizes the well-being of its people, ensuring that Bruneians experience one of the highest standards of living in Southeast Asia. In Malaysia, while social programs exist, the larger population and diversified economy make it impossible to match Brunei's benefits. Malaysia provides subsidies for essential items like fuel, cooking oil, and rice, but these are often stretched thin. Healthcare in Malaysia is subsidized, but citizens still face out-of-pocket expenses for certain treatments, and the education system, though widely accessible, often struggles with quality and resources compared to Brunei's fully funded programs. Brunei's small size plays a significant role in its ability to deliver these benefits. Managing healthcare and education for 440,000 people is a vastly different challenge from providing for over 33 million citizens. The Sultan's control over the nation's wealth allows for direct and effective implementation of social welfare initiatives without the need for extensive bureaucracy. For Bruneians, this translates into a life of relative comfort and security. Home ownership is accessible due to government subsidies, and there is minimal unemployment, as the state often acts as an employer of last resort. Malaysia, meanwhile, faces challenges with rising costs of living, a growing income gap, and urban-rural disparities. Despite steady economic growth, many Malaysians struggle to keep up with daily expenses, especially in urban areas like Kuala Lumpur and Penang. The stark contrast extends to infrastructure and public services. Brunei's oil wealth has funded modern roads, high-quality public amenities, and even subsidies for car ownership, reflecting the nation's high income status. Malaysia, though developed in many areas, still contends with infrastructure gaps, particularly in rural and underserved regions like East Malaysia, Sabah, and Sarawak. Another key difference lies in government employment. In Brunei, a significant portion of the population is employed in the public sector, providing job stability and decent wages. In Malaysia, the private sector dominates employment, creating greater economic volatility for workers who face job insecurity and fluctuating wages, especially during economic downturns. Ultimately, the level of social welfare in Brunei reflects a nation able to invest heavily in its people without worrying about financial strain. Malaysia, while striving to support its population, faces the challenges of scale, diversity, and a broader economic framework. These differences underscore why Brunei's citizens enjoy a higher quality of life compared to their Malaysian neighbors. Why Brunei is at risk to being poor? Brunei's reliance on oil and gas has been the foundation of its wealth, but it also presents a significant vulnerability. Over 90% of Brunei's government revenue comes from petroleum exports, making it highly susceptible to fluctuations in global oil prices. While this resource has provided a high standard of living for its citizens, the heavy dependence on a single industry is a looming concern. Efforts to diversify the economy have been slow, with limited success in areas like tourism, financial services, and halal industries. Malaysia, on the other hand, has taken a diversified approach to its economy. It is one of the world's leading exporters of electronics, rubber products, and palm oil. Tourism also plays a significant role, contributing over $20 billion annually to its GDP. This diversity has allowed Malaysia to better weather global economic shocks compared to Brunei, which remains tightly tied to the volatile energy market. However, Malaysia's diversification comes with its own set of challenges. Competing in multiple industries requires significant investments in infrastructure, education, and innovation. While the country has made strides in these areas, gaps remain, particularly in the transition to high-value industries. Brunei, with its smaller economy, can focus its efforts on niche areas, but its progress has been hindered by a lack of urgency driven by its oil wealth. Global trends further highlight the challenges ahead for both nations. The push for renewable energy and the global decline in fossil fuel dependence could threaten Brunei's economic lifeline. The International Energy Agency, IEA, projects that global oil demand could peak by the early 2030s, forcing oil-dependent nations like Brunei to adapt quickly or face economic stagnation. Malaysia, while less reliant on oil, also faces risks. The palm oil industry has been under scrutiny for environmental concerns, and the electronics manufacturing sector must contend with rising competition from regional players like Vietnam and Indonesia. To maintain its growth, Malaysia needs to accelerate its shift toward high-tech industries and knowledge-based economies, such as fintech, biotechnology, and green technologies. Despite Brunei's immense wealth, its long-term prospects hinge on successfully diversifying away from oil, a task that has proven difficult so far. Malaysia, though more diversified, must contend with the complexities of scaling up its industries and addressing socio-economic inequalities. Both nations face a critical juncture. Brunei must prepare for a post-oil future, and Malaysia must transition into a fully developed economy. These contrasting paths highlight why Brunei's current wealth far surpasses Malaysia's. However, as global economic dynamics shift, the true test will be how each country adapts to the challenges of a rapidly changing world. The future holds both promise and uncertainty for these Southeast Asian neighbors. Is it true that Brunei is rich because of their culture? Cultural and regional differences between Brunei and Malaysia also play a crucial role in shaping their economic outcomes. Brunei is a small, homogeneous nation, where Malay Muslims make up the vast majority of the population. This cultural unity has allowed Brunei to maintain a cohesive national identity and implement policies that align closely with its values and traditions. The Sultan, as both the head of state and a religious leader, plays a central role in guiding the country's development with a strong emphasis on Islamic principles. Malaysia, by contrast, is a diverse and multicultural nation, home to Malays, Chinese, Indians, and indigenous groups. While this diversity enriches the country, it also creates complexities in governance and policymaking. Balancing the interests of these diverse communities has often led to political compromises that can slow down progress. Affirmative action policies, such as the Bumiputera program, have aimed to uplift the majority Malay population but have also stirred debate over fairness and economic efficiency. Brunei's small size and cultural homogeneity enable it to focus its resources on specific goals without facing significant internal conflict. In Malaysia, regional disparities are more pronounced, with Peninsular Malaysia experiencing faster development compared to Sabah and Sarawak in East Malaysia. These disparities contribute to economic inequalities that Malaysia continues to grapple with. Another significant difference lies in their approaches to regional and international partnerships. Brunei's foreign policy focuses on maintaining stability and neutrality. As a small nation, it avoids taking strong stances in global conflicts, and instead fosters close ties with neighbors like Malaysia and Indonesia. Brunei is also a member of ASEAN, actively participating in regional initiatives while leveraging its wealth to maintain a stable and prosperous society. Malaysia, as a larger and more geopolitically active nation, plays a bigger role on the global stage. It has taken bold stances in regional disputes, invested heavily in trade partnerships, and pursued ambitious infrastructure projects like the Belt and Road Initiative with China. However, Malaysia's active involvement in global politics also makes it more vulnerable to external pressures and economic dependencies. Cultural values also influence their economic priorities. Brunei's emphasis on maintaining its traditions and religious values means the nation prioritizes stability over aggressive economic growth. Malaysia, with its vision of becoming a fully developed nation by 2050 under the Shared Prosperity Vision, has focused on growth and modernization, though the journey remains challenging due to its diversity and scale. Ultimately, these cultural and regional dynamics reveal why Brunei enjoys unparalleled wealth and stability, while Malaysia navigates the complexities of being a larger, more diverse nation. The contrasting paths of these two neighbors offer valuable insights into how culture and regional dynamics can shape a country's economic trajectory.